Let's do this.
For me, probably not being afraid to fail.
For me, able to think politically.
I think it is someone who can see the big picture.
I think a leader is someone who can control the temperature.
Someone who can hold steady.
Being empathetic.
Someone who has the flexibility to switch between leadership styles.
Someone who projects confidence.
Someone who is able to persuade. Someone who embraces change.
Someone who empowers subordinates.
A Leader for Our Time by Dathan Brooks, Brooke Lucas, Rachel Rohde, and Josh Stombaugh. There are a few questions you should ask yourself when considering who you would choose as the leader of our time. First one should be, what are your leadership criteria? We have determined the following 11 criteria for leadership. 1. A good leader is someone who is not afraid of loss or failure. Leaders must be able to learn from their mistakes and failures. 2. He or she has to be able to think politically in order to gain more power within their environment. Thinking politically helps leaders determine who is supporting them and who is opposing them. 3. They have to be able to see the big picture and cannot allow their vision to become too narrow. The more they can predict what will happen, the more they can be prepared. 4. A great leader must control the temperature of the environment, thus meaning they must keep the people around them driven to achieve the goal. 5. They must be able to hold steady even when they are brutally criticized. A good leader does not allow controversy to affect their decision making. 6. They must be empathetic toward everyone around them. This will allow he or she to connect with their subordinates on a personal level. 7. They must have the flexibility to switch leadership styles depending on the situation that arises. A leader will be put through many different scenarios and must be able to react accordingly. 8. They must project confidence on whichever task he or she may be doing. Projecting confidence will allow the people around you to gain trust in your leadership. 9. A leader must be able to persuade their peers and subordinates in order to successfully achieve their goals. 10. A leader must not become too set in their ways, but instead be able to embrace change. 11. Lastly, he or she must be able to empower the people around them. Empowering the people around you is one of the easiest ways to improve efficiency. While listening to all of these leadership qualities, who did you have in mind? A president? A CEO of a large company? I bet it wasn't a 21-year-old girl from Pakistan. The leader we have chosen to describe to you is Malala Yousafzai. So you might ask, how did you select her as a leader? Our first criteria for choosing a leader was that he or she is unique. We did not want to choose a president or someone like Bill Gates or even Elon Musk because everyone is familiar with them. Instead, we wanted someone who many people may know nothing about. The second criteria we have for a leader is that it has to be someone who has positively impacted their environment. A leader must be able to influence the people around them in order to achieve the goals that they are striving for. The third criteria we have set is that it has to be someone who has showed courage and or bravery in some way, shape, or form in their decision making. The fourth and final criteria is that the leader must display emotional intelligence. A great leader must be able to remain aware of their own strengths and weaknesses. As you will learn throughout this presentation, Malala meets all of these criteria.
How would you describe her life journey? January 2008. At the age of 11, Malala was forced to say goodbye to her classmates, not knowing when she'd ever see them again. The Taliban took control of her town in Swat Valley, Pakistan, and forbade girls from attending school. The Pakistani Taliban imposed strict Islamic law by shutting down girls' schools, banning women from active roles in society, and carrying out suicide bombings. Malala's family fled their hometown and didn't return until the tensions and violence eased. Later in 2008, Malala gave her first speech in protest of the school closings, and in early 2009, she made her first television appearance. Not soon after, the Taliban seized fire and lifted the restrictions against girls attending school. She was nominated for the International Children's Peace Prize in October 2011 and was awarded Pakistan's first National Youth Peace Prize in December. Her determination to give Pakistani girls access to a free, quality education resulted in unwanted attention from the Taliban. October 2012. On her way home from school, a masked gunman entered her school bus and shot her on the left side of the head. She survived the attack and was flown to Birmingham, England for surgery. In December 2012, Pakistani president announced the launch of a $10 million education fund in Malala's honor. April 2013. After moving to the UK, her father and her founded Malala Fund with the mission to amplify girls' voices and ensure that every girl has access to 12 years of free, safe, quality education. Less than a year after being shot, she made her first public appearance addressing 500 people at the United Nations in New York City. Later, she was awarded the United Nations Human Rights Prize, which is awarded every 5 years. She was named one of Times Magazine's most influential people, and she co-authored a memoir, I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot by the Taliban. In October 2014, she became the youngest person to win the Liberty Medal, awarded to those striving for people's freedom throughout the world. October 2014. Due to her vast work in girls' rights and education, she became the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 17. She used her public appearances to bring attention to human rights issues around the world. In July 2015, she opened a girls' school in Lebanon for Syrian civil war refugees. In April 2017, she was designated a UN Messenger of Peace. October 2017. She attends Oxford University while studying philosophy, politics, and economics. She still actively works with Malala Fund to travel to countries and fight for girls' free, safe, quality education. In March 2018, she returned to her home country of Pakistan for the first time since she was shot in the head. How has she contributed / made a difference? She created the Malala Fund to give girls a platform to speak their minds with the goal of providing all female students with 12 years of education. She outlined very specific expectations for the 57 million children who are out of school around the world on the 2013 inaugural Malala Day. In response, the UN launched the Global Education First Initiative. This is a project that aims to bring quality and inclusive education to all over the next 5 years. She reminded the world that Islam don't support violence. She wanted to ensure that terrorists did not get away with misappropriating the Muslim religion to justify their violent crimes. When a terrorist group kidnapped nearly 300 schoolgirls in Nigeria in April 2014, she spoke for many by claiming that Islam does not condone such depraved acts. She helped hundreds of Syrian refugees cross into Jordan after leaving their homes behind and during a taxing journey through the desert. Her father and a team from the Malala Fund, which is working to bring every schoolgirl-aged Syrian refugee back to the classroom, joined her. For her 18th birthday in July 2015, Malala took action on global education by opening a school for Syrian refugee girls in Lebanon. The Malala Fund covered the cost, and the school is designed to admit nearly 200 girls from the ages of 14 to 18.
There's a lot to admire about Malala Yousafzai. We're going to stick to these 3 bullet points and focus on them, though the list is certainly much longer and more comprehensive. First, the fact that she was undeterred after being shot, no less in the head, at the age of 15. This represents holding steady in a very strong light. You may recall from chapter 7 of our text, the author described holding steady as, quote, essential skill for staying alive and keeping people focused on the work, end quote. While I don't think our author meant this in a literal sense, it certainly applies to Malala's situation. She was able to take the heat and the stress and all of the things that came with those who were rising up against her cause. She stayed strong and she held steady. Secondly, she's got the empathy triad. You'll recall this is cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and empathic concern. Cognitive empathy, as we know, is the ability to understand another person's perspective. This enables her to explain herself in meaningful ways. When she knows where the other parties are coming from, she can reach and connect with them by using her skills that she's developed in cognitive empathy. The inquisitive nature that she lives fuels this. The emotional empathy, the second of the three in the triad, allows her to have the ability to feel what someone else feels. This comes naturally as Malala has experienced firsthand the desire to go to school and the inability to do so. It's very difficult for a lot of girls in Pakistan to have a place to go to school, and that's why many end up going to school with boys. Malala understands this clearly as she has lived it. So her emotional empathy connects with these individuals in that she can feel what they're feeling, literally. Finally, empathic concern is the ability to sense what someone else needs from you. And this might be a time when Malala has to use this judgment and determine whether or not to comfort someone who is sad or to show them maybe a little bit of tough love and encourage them to stand up, straighten their back, and fight for what's right. Finally, Yousafzai is a very strong sensor. She has an innate ability to pick up on nonverbal cues, to hear things that are not said and see things that are not present, sort of fill in the blanks, reading silences, and using her intuition to judge, fill in the gaps. She's easily able to pick up on these unexpressed feelings and emotions and judge whether relationships are working or not because she is a strong sensor. There may be, however, instances where Yousafzai has opportunities to improve and get better, further developing her leadership. By filling in some of these gaps, she might take the advice of Bashir and Gino, who, in their article, Leaders as Decision Architects, encouraged leaders to create opportunities for reflection. She has her entire life ahead of her, as she only turned 21 2 weeks ago. At the age of 21, she's won the Nobel Prize, spoken at the UN, and is attending school at Oxford University, in addition to picking up the cause and continuing to fight for education for girls. This doesn't leave a whole lot of extra spare time for Yousafzai for reflection. This could lead to a potential gap in her development. We might encourage her to take a look at this. Secondly, there's the failure to address the underlying cause. This is a big challenge in that the lack of an adequate number of schools seems to be the true problem. This is the reason why lots of girls in Pakistan are attending boys-only schools. It may be several miles or kilometers as the measure there between schools. So if a girl is not to attend a boys' school, she may not have the opportunity to attend school at all. Finally, Malala carries the monkey. This has very much been her cause, and while it's a positive thing, it is the potential for a gap in her leadership development. One of the things that our author encourages us to do is take the time to note who's working for whom and to make time for the gorillas. These are two key steps and things that Malala should pay attention to, as we want to make sure if she's able to think forward in the future where she can handle the bigger gorillas that are sure to come, facing the Taliban, for example, and not just be stuck fighting the day-to-day monkeys and carrying those on her back. We began our video by sharing 11 different criteria we felt could complement the skill set that a leader has. We've identified these 6 as the specific skills as a subset that Malala possesses. First, no fear of loss or failure. Second, she's able to think politically. She can see the big picture and is very empathetic. She also projects confidence, and clearly has the ability to persuade others.
So how successful were her leadership efforts? Pakistan politicians are now making campaign pledges to improve access to education for girls. One major politician stated that they wanted to ensure equal access to education for women as well as health and employment. There are also improved enrollment numbers for girls, but only in some provinces. As you can see on the chart to the left, the enrollment numbers for 2 provinces have improved. The second largest city in Pakistan also has more girls than boys enrolled in schools. However, many locations in Pakistan have yet to improve, like Sindh and Baluchistan. This is an adaptive change for Pakistan. Therefore, it might take some time to get people to change. Her efforts are far from over. Malala returned to Pakistan March 29, 2018, after leaving for 6 years since the shooting. She said that it was one of the happiest days of her life to be back and among her own people. Her next steps involve furthering her education. She was accepted at Oxford in 2017. She sees education as a tool to help her learn how to make a difference in countries and how to get things done. This will lead her to her next leadership goal. So what can we learn about leadership from Malala? The first is to not fear opposition or loss. She could have quit after the Taliban gunmen shot her. However, she continued to stand by her mission and beliefs and actually came back 10 times stronger. The second thing we can learn from her is to stay focused on the big picture. Instead of focusing on activities, she stayed focused on the main goal of allowing girls to receive an education. Even though achieving goals takes longer, it is worth it in the end once they are accomplished. The third is holding steady in the heat of the action. Doubting your direction and capabilities can make you lose your initiative instantly. But she kept pushing through despite all the forces that were against her. She withstood the heat that was thrown at her by displaying patience, maturity, courage, strength, and grace. The fourth is to continue to educate yourself. Larry Bossidy actually suggests this in his article titled, "What Your Leader Expects of You." He says we should seek perpetual education and development to generate new ideas and to stay alert to changing conditions. Malala is doing just that by furthering her education at Oxford. Lastly, we can learn that adaptive changes can take a while to accomplish. There are no easy answers to adaptive challenges. Like it says in the book Leadership on the Line, the deeper the change and the greater the amount of new learning required, the more resistance there will be. This resistance will prolong your efforts. Malala's efforts are still trying to progress to other areas of Pakistan to this day. Therefore, we should be patient to make adaptive change happen. Thank you for watching our presentation.